Now, the second speaker of the evening came a long way. He is an investigative journalist and filmmaker from Australia. And he's a very busy man because he's investigating fraud and scammy projects on blockchain. Please give a warm welcome to Tom.
Thank you kindly, Ferris. Thank you kindly. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you all for being here and taking the time to give me your attention for the next 15 minutes. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm a no-coiner. That means I have no coins, no tokens. And basically, I think that's an advantage in this here ecosystem of yours because not many people that are able to create media in crypto don't hold any coins or tokens. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, then we'll get stuck right in. My name's Tom Gillespie, I'm from Australia and I've been making documentary film production movies in the crypto space for about 2 years. I've got one movie out called The Fake Fluency and I'm currently producing a film called Hexagons and the Time Value of Money. Now, who here has heard of Hex? It's about 4 or 5 people, which is kind of revealing, but I'm going to dive straight into the presentation. So what I want to touch on here tonight is common definitions of DeFi, because I'm navigating it just like all of you guys. Centralized realities and decentralized ideals, my work as an investigator, and I want to conclude on a few things that I've learned over the last 2 years, and then we'll go to a Q&A. How's that sound?
Great!
Right on! So, let's get to the nitty-gritty, and I think those of you in the crowd that already understand DeFi, Decentralised Finance, will understand that Decentralised Finance offers financial... Hello?
Sorry.
What do you do, mate?
Sorry.
Just, I'll control that.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Decentralised finance, like I think we can all agree, or at least 50% of us, maybe 60, 70%, can agree on these fundamental definitions of decentralised finance. It offers financial instruments without relying on intermediaries such as banks and brokers. Is that fair to say?
Woo! Yes.
DeFi is permissionless and inclusive. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Transactions are in real time.
Yes.
Jeez, man, I think only 10% of the people here are actually blockchain native. Transactions are transparent, of course they are. They're on the bloody blockchain. Users can retain custody of their assets using non-custodial crypto wallets or via smart contract. I think those of you that actually let's just get a measure of the bloody audience here, right? How many of you guys hold crypto? Arms up. Okay, I'm going to put that at about 25% actually. So the rest of you guys that don't have crypto in your wallets, hands up. Okay, no, and then there's the agnostic lot that don't want to talk about it. So these are the common definitions that I've come to understand in DeFi. Obviously, I'm an external investigator, so I don't, I believe this to be accurate. Have I missed anything? Those of you that understand DeFi a little bit better than me, have I missed anything? Pipe up now. No? Okay, I've covered the basics. Now I'd like to move on to the centralised realities of DeFi, which I believe those of you in the crowd will be more than familiar with. The creators of these smart contracts, they build the contract. They code the thing, right? They deploy it to a public blockchain ideally, not always ideally. They decide on the initial economic model, which is typically the tokenomics model. For those of you that are not aware, tokenomics models are basically how much do I get to keep as the guy that built the smart contract versus how many should I give to my mates versus how many should I give to the public. they decide on the initial governance model, which is how do those tokens that are issued to these various parties within the contract interact with the contract. Some are more, let's say, some tokens have more rights than others. Is that fair to say, those of you in the crowd that are familiar? Yeah. Managing the origin address. Now, this is the all-seeing, all-knowing origin address. For those of you in the crowd that don't know shit about crypto, the origin address is that one that created all of the above. Now, this is an extremely powerful address. It's a public address, and everybody can see it. Is that fair to say? But who manages it? Who can decide what the origin address? Because it affects all the others. Right? Is that fair to say? No. No? Okay, why not? You guys are developers, right? Bring it.
I mean, you just have one single source of owning the whole thing. So, I mean, the idea is to make it like democratized as possible.
Yeah.
You want to make
I would like you to expand. I mean, you guys are blockchain developers, you two guys?
I'm not blockchain.
Oh, okay, just general developers.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on then, because it's quite specific to blockchain. Origin addresses determine basically the governance model, the tokenomics model. They deploy and build the smart contracts. This is an extremely powerful entity, and whether it's a individual or it's a group of individuals or a corporation or, you know, in a utopian sense of the word, some sort of character that doesn't quite exist but might exist, if you know what I mean. We'll move on to the next category of the people that interact with such a DeFi technology, and that's the community. Now, I personally am very interested in how the community interacts with a smart contract, because a smart contract alone is just it's just a set of code, right? It doesn't do shit. Till you bring in the community, it doesn't come to life. So let's break down the community categories. We have the creator, the OA, who is this mysterious figure that may or may not be able to create or destroy tokens or coins in the tokenomic model or change the governance model. In the early days, it's important to distinguish that this happens in the early phases of the launch of a contract. We have the early adopters, which go on to become the god whales, given that the contract or the project lasts long enough. And the god whales, of course, are those people that they're the mates of the OA. They get issued they get a kickback early on. Typically developers or marketers, influencers with large followers. Kingmakers. Now, again, I just want to put a disclaimer in here for you crypto people out there. This is not a personal attack on you or your investments, but I do want to break down the fundamental value propositions of this technology right here, and that's what I'm attempting to detail. And I hope you can bear with me. Can you bear with me?
Yes!
Okay, great. Kingmakers, the influencers. These are the people you see on YouTube who tell you a little bit about the coin or the token, and they say, you know what? If you buy this, you might just, if you're lucky, get rich. But if you don't, too bad. This is what's called FUD. FOMO. FUD is the, well, honestly, influencers tend to create both FUD and FOMO. And that's a marketing strategy that I'll go into later on. Plebs, your friends and your family, that's when you're not quite an influencer, you're not a godwell, you're definitely not the origin address. It's probably you guys. Are you guys plebs?
No. Yes. Yeah.
We're all plebs, it's fine. I'm not a pleb obviously because I don't hold any tokens or anything, but Majority of the people are plebs. So, and I'm not describing a pyramid scheme here, but it sounds a bit like that, I know. And again, I'm not targeting any specific project. This is just this is what I've come to understand of how the dynamics work in the space. And then you've got your bots and your exchanges, and actually they're interchangeable because you've got arbitrage bots and you've got something called flash bots, which I recently discovered. Who's heard of flash bots?
Yay.
One guy.
But
One guy.
They are not new. When Ethereum was proposed, they are like when it was proposed in Reddit, people was discussing about the flash bot, and it's going to be integrated within like the main Ethereum core base.
What does that mean, man?
It means like there is one thing called MIP, which is like more like bots that extract value when it's more worth it to extract value within a new block than just mining the block in the normal order. And this is a base thing of any Ethereum virtual machines. Because for the miners it's better sometimes to mine for profit than mine for the stability of the chain.
Right on. We're going to take an interview later. Okay, well, again, this is, yeah, it's contrarian stuff, but I hope you guys find some value in what I'm delivering to you tonight, especially considering it seems that there's only 25% of the crowd that actually are in crypto. The construction, the capacity to create or mint new tokens. We're coming back to the origin address now. Now, again, most people are not able to look at a contract, a smart contract specifically, and do any sort of analysis, so they rely on white papers, and white papers are typically published by the people that earlier on created the product, whatever it might be. So there's a trust, there's a distrust there. There's an element of, well, the trustlessness it leaves the so-called trustlessness of the blockchain, right? And you suddenly have to believe in an origin address or a group of individuals that created a contract that launched it to be able to believe that they will or will not generate new tokens, destroy them. The uses of DEXs in early stages. So DEXs are decentralized exchanges, and when you have a decentralized exchange, you have zero accountability. Anybody, literally anybody can start a DEX. Actually, I often get emails about, would you like to kickstart your own DEX? No, I don't want to do that, but I appreciate the email. The use of airdrops, where you basically put your token into the hands of millions or hundreds of thousands of people, typically in the pleb category, who think they are going to, they think they're going to get something special out of it, and it costs them nothing. But it's still, they have to reveal their address, which, when they do that, exposes them to a whole world of potential problems because it reveals their balance. Assuming they're newbies or plebs that don't understand how to obfuscate their balance, which, again, these are things that I'm learning as I go along. Significant token distributions, again, that's the kickback to your developers and your mates, or those that will eventually become god whales. The function of the OA. What is the function of the OA? How do I determine it? Can I look at the smart contract and say, okay, the OA is going to get crazy kickbacks for the next 6 months, but I'm forced to lock up my tokens, fire and air, it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of information that is not made present from the very, very beginning of a project's launch. And this is why it's very important, and it's why I've broken it down into these categories, because I think the construction is often looking a little bit like this to most people.
Excuse me, quick question.
Sure.
You mentioned pleb. Yeah, that's all right. I got a loud voice. Thank you.
Shout, mate, shout.
You mentioned plebs several times, and it said on the previous slide that plebs were your friends and family that buy your crypto. Are you accounting like as far as plebs, like the millions of low-income people and vulnerable populations that don't have access to traditional finance? Are you including those, or are you just talking about like my buddy who buys my crypto? Because
I'm including those. I'm including those.
Okay, so like plebs, you mean like plebeian, like in a class
I didn't come up with the
system?
terminology, mate. That's just what it is. That's what I've picked up along the way. So, but I believe the people you described would fall into that category. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Moving on, decentralized ideals, the stories they tell. The DeFi ecosystem collectively is decentralized. So this comes back to the idea that, okay, let's take Ethereum for example. Ethereum has maybe tens of thousands of smart contracts built on it by now. It's been around for a while. Individually, those smart contracts might be operated or, you know, managed by a corporation in Switzerland or Malta or wherever. But collectively, the ecosystem is decentralized, the infrastructure. And that's a fair argument. I think that's a fair argument. However, I'm not entirely sure that a decentralized infrastructure with arguably centralized nodes or contracts upon it lends itself very well to the broader conversation around DeFi itself. Now, I'm up for you giving me some feedback in that regard because I'm not entirely sure. Again, I'm on a mission myself to understand this technology better. And we can pick that up in the Q&A afterwards. Decentralization is a spectrum. This is something that has come up numerous times over the last 2 years. So, a maxi, not a Bitcoin maxi, but a general crypto maxi would suggest that decentralization is either on or off, right? It's either decentralized or it's not. But what I've learned is there is a spectrum. And most of the time, companies or groups of individuals that will launch a smart contract quite centralized will have an ambition to become decentralized in the near future. Whether it takes 6 months or 6 years is irrelevant, but they have the ambition. And these contracts or these organizations, they rely on that idea of a spectrum, a potential future achievement of full decentralization. I think it's a beautiful story for the crypto community to tap into, but I still think it leaves a lot of room for error. And I think arguably a lot of the time it leads to the kind of rug pulls, or not even rug pulls, but just like people get tired, right? They launch a contract, they have an ambition to become decentralized, but they get tired, or maybe they've raised $200 million and fuck off. Like, it's hard to say. But I think the decentralization as a spectrum is something that continuously comes up, and I really would like to understand. And I'd like you guys, if any of you guys have something to say, I'd like to bring that up in the Q&A and afterwards. People only care about number go up. Who gives a fuck about number go up? That's four people. 4 people for the live stream. Okay, so everybody else doesn't care about number go up, apparently. Decentralization is an ambition. Again, this is what I was talking about before. We will get there eventually, but just right now we need to, get some things in place so that we can get to where we want to be, which is fully decentralized. And maybe you get there, maybe you don't. But it doesn't matter. At least you launched a product. And now I'm going to wrap up with my personal work, which I've been doing over the last couple of years with Tomo and Tommy. That's me in the middle. My first film, The Fake Fluency, was based on my first investigation into Scooter Coin. Now, who's heard of Scooter Coin? One guy. What have you heard about Scooter Coin, mate?
From the Fake Fluency, I have actually seen it.
Okay, so you learn about it. So you don't hold any Scooter Coin?
I don't want to disclose that.
Well, I put a fair bit of pinger into that, and it didn't work out well, and that's what inspired my first investigation. That movie is live at this URL. If you would like to watch it, I encourage you to do so, because, like I said, a lot of the things that I've learned, or continue to learn are incorporated in that film. Right now, 2022, this is coming out in September. Who's heard of Hex?
Here.
That's at least 6 people.
Right.
Well, I've been looking at Hex for about 8-9 months now. I've conducted at least 50 interviews, and I have spent way too much time on Twitter. Richard Hart is the creator of Hex, which is a smart contract on Ethereum, and I'd argue that it appears that he's the #1 most hated guy in crypto. Now, who's heard of Richard Hart? Even less people than Hex, okay. That's interesting, because from my investigation so far, most people enter Hex via this man. Arguably one of the biggest crypto influencers on the YouTubes. And if you haven't checked him out, don't bother, because he's probably one of the most arrogant persons on the planet. I can't comment on the contract that he's built on Ethereum, but fair play to the guy. He's built an incredible community, which is where I get most of my interest. I'm personally extremely fascinated by the communities that gather around coins and tokens. And the community that gather around Hex are called Hexicans. And my God, they are some of the wildest characters you've ever met out there, honestly. And so if you do find a moment, go to hex.community.com and you'll get the behind the scenes emails and stuff like that. I don't know, you have to ask the production company about that stuff, like marketing stuff. But it's been an extremely revealing process, and I do think he is representative of the broader crypto community at large, actually. Like the project, Hex project, it's easily replicable across the entire crypto spectrum, whether it's this Luna, recently the Luna thing, or any of the previous scams that have occurred over the last decade. This guy encompasses all of them, practically. And yet, he pretends that he's not the OA. He puts his face right on the front of it, and yet he denies being the origin address. How can you launch a project into the world and deny being the guy that launched the fucking project into the world? There's nobody else around. I'm looking around. Who else could it be? So anyway, regardless, that'll come out in September. You're very welcome to check it out, and I appreciate it if you did. Right now, going forward into the future, I've launched Cryptoscandemic.com, and Cryptoscandemic.com came out of it was basically because I am inundated on both Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the bloody social medias, to go and investigate this coin, this token, this coin. So now, I've realised that I could actually make 20 more documentary movie films. And so I set up Cryptoscandemic.com so that you can vote on the next investigation. There's 3. There's, I think, Solana, XRP, and what's that stable coin called now? It's Tether. Those are the 3 voting options, but you can also drop your own leads if you have any. So I encourage you to go to Cryptoscandemic.com, drop your leads or vote or whatever it is you would rather do. But this is basically what I'm committed to doing now, because I'm the only guy in the crypto realm who doesn't have any coins or tokens, so I can give an accurate, independent representation of what the bloody hell's going on. And not many people can do that. Conclusion. The future. Managing cult FUD and cult FOMO. Now, most of you guys who are in crypto will be familiar with FUD and FOMO: fear, uncertainty, doubt, and fear of missing out. If any of you guys have children here or young adults, they're going to need to understand how FUD and FOMO works, and how, especially in the digital realm. So if you can teach them how to navigate FUD and FOMO emotionally, I think they're going to be a better place to navigate both the crypto economy and the digital economy at large. Who's putting the trust into trustless? Again, coming back to Richard Hart, the amount of people that I've spoke to who navigate into HEX specifically and many other tokens usually come through an influencer or some influential crypto character. Are they putting the trust into trustless? I don't know. But let's try to figure it out, or let's try to teach the next generations how to navigate that. Rise of the citizen banker. Are you going to take a loan from your kid? Are you going to take a loan from a guy you know? We used to have banking infrastructure where loans and regulation existed. Now everybody is a banker. You remember the rise of the citizen journalist 15 years ago. We're about to get the rise of the citizen bank. All of us will be borrowing money amongst each other and staking it. Those are the realities. Dictators or democracy. When you have someone that is an OA of a smart contract that has such power, has created such a community of strength, you are, at the whims of creating a dictator. Let's just hope that we don't end up with too many dictators and somehow some people float to the top. I don't know how, again, I'm on a learning journey myself. But I believe there are people designing democratic smart contracts out there that will benefit the wider, broader community as well. So it's not one or the other. The dictators, let's just hope the dictators don't win out. Transactional relationships and the financialization of everyone and everything, this is inevitable. And again, I think it depends on whose smart contract you're interacting with and which influences you're listening to. Am I listening to a dictator or am I listening to a democratic organisation? Again, this is something that you're going to have to teach your kids. It takes time. Thank you. I'll take questions, but I think, is somebody on after me? Yeah, you're on after me. Okay.
Questions?
I can take questions if you have any that are of any interest, otherwise shots fired.
So, you're investigating scams. How do you define a scam?
Well, I haven't quite been able to do that yet, mate. But I think the answer orbits around the OA and the potential for the OA to both create or destroy tokens.
So you're defining a scam as the origin address, the ability of the origin address to modify the contract after people have bought in.
Not modify the contract, but destabilize the tokenomic model. Because, that's as far as I've got, mate. I mean, I'm only 2 years in. Make sense? Anybody else?
Yeah. So during your research, most probably you found that some of these projects that has no value but made a big success. Could you figure out why some projects, although no value, no use case, nothing, could make success, and those who has real use case behind, they are hidden and nobody is able to see them, although they tried all their best to do their own marketing or to spread the word via their community? What is the secret?
Because number go up, right? Because number go up. And 99% of the people in crypto are, I'm sorry, I did not coin the term, but it's the plebs. So plebs only care about getting in and getting paid. I think the people that are trying to build smart contracts that deliver some sort of value to a broader set of individuals. It's a minority. So yeah, I think it's very difficult to market a genuinely sort of universally accepted and usefully incorporated.
Did you figure out how to change this?
Did I figure out how to change this? That's not my job, mate. My job is to expose it, basically. Like I don't think you can change it. I mean, a lot of the times there's parallels with the regular economy, right? People, for example, let's look at Elon Musk. He smoked a blunt on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he tanked the stock. And then the SEC came in and went, what the bloody hell, you know, did you just manipulate your own stock? What the bloody hell are you up to? And he was like, he had to pay like fines for that, for smoking a joint on a podcast. Like, this is the kind of world we live in. Crypto gets 10x times weirder than that. So, no, I don't know how to fix it, but I mean, I imagine within the next 5 to 10 years I'll figure it out.
2 more questions?
2 more questions.
Hey, thanks a lot for the great presentation. I'm wondering why you decided not to have any coins yourself and not actually experience, being a person who owns crypto.
Well, it's very, very difficult to stay independent when you hold crypto, right? You tend to spiral down into some sort of weird utopian outlook on life where everything's going to be fine, and that's why I chose this graphic here, this one, the chains crashing. I think this is a great visual for what people believe about crypto. They think that suddenly they don't have to interact with centralized banking infrastructure, although most of them probably do because it's more efficient and easier to interact with. I'm trying to remain plural, but honestly, I saw some mad gains in some of the coins and I was very bloody tempted, but I decided not to. Does that answer your question?
Well, but isn't it true that you both invested in Scooter Coin and in Hex? Both of the projects you are now investigating?
I wouldn't call it an investment, mate. I bought some Scooter Coin. Well, I didn't buy it. My brother's son needed to. My brother's son became wrapped up in Bitman 360's escapades, so I lent a bit of money to my brother so that his kid could get some, but I wouldn't call it a direct investment. And when it comes to Hex, I spoke to production when I was doing the investigation. I said, should we try the product? And yeah, we did. We are trying the product. It continues. I've staked some Hex, but the money came from production and it's not my personal money. So it's more like, okay, we're going to investigate this product. Let's try the bloody thing, right? So I did stake some Hex, and the stake ends exactly when the movie comes out in September. But I wouldn't call it an investment. Does that answer your question, or are you still?
I guess so.
Yeah, it's okay.
Last question.
Since you have studied so many scams, what advice would you give to someone who wants to build a scam to pull it off really? What are the perfect ingredients for a scam? Not that I want to, it's not for me, it's for a friend.
I don't want to make that information public. So I'm not going to encourage such things, especially if this is live streaming, because there might be people on the other end that get ideas. So I'm sorry, I can't elaborate on that. But I do have a very good idea on how to construct one, should I be asked to. So maybe we'll meet up later for an interview. Okay, thanks, mate. Thank you, guys.
We have a 10-minute break and see you after the last